Hi, welcome to season 5. This is episode 1, and we're calling it our open mic. And what that means is that each of us, Tom Spitale, hi Tom, Sean, hello.
Hello.
So we've all written down 3 topics, but we haven't shared them with each other yet, and they're related to strategic marketing topics, of course. And the unique thing about the season also is that we are recording it on video. So if you want to listen, you can still do that on SoundCloud and Apple iTunes, but you can now see us on the video on our we have a channel called The Excellent Marketer on YouTube. So anyway, so we're going to get started, and I think that Tom should go first. Tom, why don't you share or ask us whatever burning question you have?
Lucky winner.
Look of relief on my face. Did you notice that when the needle pointed your direction?
Yeah, was it relief? Was it relief or anger?
Well, frustration. Who knows?
Okay. First question: what are the steps to elevate the role of marketing if in the company in question its current status is just sales support? What are the actual practical steps? How do you go about elevating marketing's role in a company step by step? Because we all know that can't happen overnight.
Okay, Sean, you go first.
Oh, I get the first crack at the answer then. You know, I think it's an interesting question, Tom, because we have this vision of what the marketing role should be: very strategic, very integrated across the whole customer-facing part of the business, which would include product development, pricing, customer acquisition. All of that sort of stuff comes into the mix. I guess the first step, and this might be a little bit of a cop-out of an answer, is it's got to start from the top. If the CEO, if the boss of the business doesn't say, I want marketing to be this central, broad church department, then it ain't ever going to happen. You're hammering on cold steel, as a blacksmith might say. Actually, I don't even know where that saying came from. I just made it up probably. But anyway, I think that's where it starts. You've got to have the person at the top saying, I want this to happen. And that's where your effort needs to go if that's not the case. Yeah,
I was thinking very similar, Sean. And that leads us to segmentation too. You know, you have to recognize wherever I'm assuming that whoever's listening to this is somewhere in the organization and probably not the CEO. And they're sitting there and they have enough knowledge and experience to say, I know this company could be great if we could actually make sure that we really thought more about the market and customers, and marketing could actually influence and be an advocate for customers. That said, if you're in a company that you look at your senior staff, so maybe it's not the senior person, but there's other people that you could work it with and say, hey, let me give you the evidence that this is real. This is how great companies get even greater, and work their influencer map internally. That might be kind of a version of what you're saying, Sean.
I guess it's kind of like if you want to prove your worth as a marketer, then you have to market yourself. It's kind of self-fulfilling, isn't it, in a way? Because if you're good enough to convince everyone and to create a value proposition and to create a position in the mind of the board as to why this is a good thing, then by definition you're a good marketer, right? So almost using the tools internally is maybe something. I think that's what you're saying, Mary, right? That's the way to do it, is to demonstrate value clearly by using the sort of tools and approaches that we talk about.
Yeah, and I think, yes, so using it internally, and if I was in that situation, I would go and do a customer survey of some type. I go talk to customers, I use the Vietnam card sort we talk about. I would do something that helped me get insights about what the company was about, that may provide some opportunity. Because I don't think you can stand on a table and yell, hey, let me help lead. But if you walk in and you have all this evidence that the customers are feeling a certain way, especially as we're going out of this post-pandemic, it is a lot of opportunity to be able to say customer needs are changing, and look at this is what our company can do if we really take these steps. So that would be what I would do if I was in that situation. Tom, do you have some thoughts on your big question?
No, I'm just going to ask questions and let you guys answer. I have no idea. No, really. I knew I know if I let the dialogue go on long enough that one of you two would hit on what I thought was the ultimate answer, which was, and Mary wins the prize. Although Sean, I mean, I love the idea that if you can get to the CEO, that's the path of least resistance, right? I love that as a strategy for us, right? You know, to start at the top down. It rarely happens that way. And I think that because it's such a long journey, I think the idea of starting small and demonstrating worth, which you both kind of alluded to, right? Is let's demonstrate some value here. And I think the most logical place to begin is somewhere in the area of customer needs and bringing some insight, some very credible insight to the organization, possibly doing this jointly, maybe not even possibly, probably doing this jointly with the sales group, you know, finding out some new information, which the current pandemic environment, you know, lends, you know, to go find what are some new things, some insightful things that we haven't really considered as a company before. As marketing demonstrates that leadership and then has the next opportunity to connect that to perhaps some changes in the company's value proposition, you know, you slowly build this credibility and you begin to be thought of as more of a source of power in the organization rather than just a supporting function.
Yeah, with AI too, I think there's so many opportunities to start to learn even more, or big data, or you know, there you can even be more educated in your proof as technology is developing very rapidly. Sean, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking that based on my own experience of this sort of thing is I totally agree. You've got to have an evidence base to sell to the CEO, whoever's going to ultimately grant that wish that you're now in charge of this broad strategic department, or rather the function is broad and strategic in itself, whether or not you're in charge of it. I think that amount of evidence gathering is important, but in organizations where marketing is thought of as a lead generator maybe, or the people that do the brochures, that sort of sales collateral thing, the expectation is for results, is for action, is for those to drive new leads, to drive new sales, to get new business. So anything you come up with, for example, you'll say, and I've noticed an interesting trend in how customers are focusing on this, and if we were to develop a product that delivered this, then they might say, that sort of stuff is interesting, but you've got to have that credibility of action as well. So I think starting small, but focusing on demonstrable results is also important, not just ideas or concepts, because that doesn't do you any favors if the prevailing mood is that you're there to support sales this quarter. That's your job.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I guess I'm thinking, I just recently read that Goldman Sachs hired their first CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And I'm curious, that would be one to roll back and see what brought them to that point where they realized in their industry, you know, because, you know, financially things are very, very turbulent right now. What made them decide that it was finally time to bring a CMO in? And as you say now, you know, if you have a CMO, there's a better chance that marketing as an organization is going to be able to prove themselves and make a significant dent on the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that your question? Is that your open mic question, Mary? Or are you, is that 1A from?
It's 1A. It's still like, where have I seen this recently and why is it happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin to unpick Goldman Sachs having a CMO, thinking of their business model and their typical consumers, if you like, or that'll be an interesting one to watch. I would have nothing to say because it's the first I've heard of it, but it sounds intriguing, shall we say, interesting.
Yeah. Do we do more than one big question on this, or do we?
I was hoping we do. I would hoping we would do a couple.
Okay, Sean, then you're next up.
Okay, so I'm going to take a very, very small step away from the strategic marketing concepts and talk more about our business model, because as you guys know, we've spent years and years jumping on planes, getting to a classroom or a university or a college or a convention center. We've met with a group of people, anywhere from a few people to a few hundred people in the room, and we've done our thing, which is in-person workshops, guided learning, action learning, teaching, whatever you want to call it. And now we've moved through necessity online. So my thought was, regardless of the fact that we've had to do this, given the current pandemic situation, now we've seen both. Which is better? Classroom or virtual?
Okay, can I go first, Mary? What I think is so compelling about that question in any business, you know, I guess what this virtual stuff is, it's a disruptive technology. You know, it's a disruptive change to the whole arena of training. And the godfather of disruptive technology, Clayton Christensen, said something a decade and a half ago that's so true that I think we're finding. He said, look, here's the way disruptive technologies or disruptive change works. It first looks like it's not going to be a threat to an existing sales model or delivery model or any business model, any kind of business model. It looks like it's not going to be a threat. People say it's never going to be as good as X. And so in this situation, it would be easy to say virtual training and virtual learning is never, ever going to be as good as live training. And the tendency is then to underrate it until somebody comes along and takes your business away from you, because eventually disruptive technologies show themselves for what they are, which is just a new way and sometimes better way to do things. And I think what we are discovering as a company is that is exactly what's going on. We have thought for a long time, nothing could ever be better than live. But now that we're doing virtual, we're finding some things that are huge advantages. Things like we used to run around and make sure everybody was getting in and out of breakout rooms. Everybody understood, you know, the plenary concepts that we had just given, and just doing logistical things. Now we just hit a button, people go into breakout rooms, and we're completely free to go into and watch what people are doing and lend our experience to what they're doing. We're having more hands-on ability to help guide people to make sure they're going in the right direction, applying the concepts insightfully. So to me, I think we are finding that that's just one of probably 3 or 4 or 5 reasons why virtual could be thought of as better than our historical live stuff. More to be proven, but that's just my thoughts on that. Not
What do
very
you think,
passionate
Mary?
about it.
Yeah, I do agree that you can get the job done. You get the job done online. You know, you can either learn the concepts or create your strategies. You know, we try to do both at the same time. So I do think that you can be very efficient and productive. You know, we did it just recently, and we're able to crank out four strategies in 4 meetings, you know, with using the toolkit. So you can do it. I think the other objectives that you have when we get in that big conference room or wherever we're meeting is also the human side of it. It's building the relationships, building alignment. A lot of times people don't even work, they work in remote parts of the world. So when we do those sessions, everyone ends up in the same room. And some of the best things that come out of it, they say, I never even knew what you really look like. I've talked to you forever, but I like you because I think you're more cool than I realized, you know? So building those relationships.
No one's ever said that to me, Mary. What's going on? I've never heard those words.
But with their friends, you know, with their colleagues, I'm saying they discover each other, and they discover that that relationship side of it that, you know, I think is hard on virtual. And so some of the objectives, absolutely, but some of those other ones, the relationships, alignments, those are going to be harder ever unless you have it in person, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
When I was thinking, I thought that'd be an interesting question, because there's no clear answer. There's good and bad in both, as you've both said. There's the human element. There is a certain amount of theatre to being in a room where you can adapt the pace and reflect the mood better. You get more of a human connection in a room, particularly with a fairly intimate group, maybe 20 to 40 people. You could manage that. Not so much when you got 600 people. That's not as good. But I think also you've got this. To me, it's like horses for courses. If you want to upskill people and teach them a very basic concept, then distance learning, on-demand learning really works, because you don't have to manage the pace for the people that are more advanced or quicker learners or more experienced. So you can use distance learning and everyone can bring themselves up to a level. The virtual allows you to be very efficient, as you said, Tom, and rather than having to cram everything into an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day, you can have 4 2-hour sessions, which tends to be much more productive and helps people focus and also get their day job done as well. It's not a complete interruption. But when you then have all that camaraderie and that unification that comes in the classroom, you can make those events in the future, when we can do them again, a sort of finishing class, a master class, if you will. So whereas before we've had to upskill, collaborate, and do all of the final stuff in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions in person, we could now have distance learning, virtual teams, followed by in person. And maybe it's still efficient because we'll be less in person, but more effective when we are. So I think it's definitely going to change things. I don't think it'll replace everything, but it's more of a menu now. It's like there's a three parts to it. You know, we've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We got learning, collaborating, and hanging out and having all the benefits there.
You know, what I wonder about the future of live training, I mean, I don't mean to disparage it, because obviously it's how we've all made our living for the last couple of decades, and it's fantastic. We love a lot of the aspects of it. I just wonder if the practicality of it, given, you know, the COVID-19 situation, I think companies are going to be very judicious about what they get together for. You know, what are they going to do if they even, you know, are going to have any kind of live events? There's certainly going to be fewer. And you wonder if, you know, while we would make the case that strategic planning and perhaps training are worthy of that, and maybe they're going to think that, you know, because of that camaraderie aspect that you guys described, that's better for, I don't know, you know, certain team building or company building events. So I think that the practicality of it, even though it has a lot of benefits, the practicality of it may be significantly less than it ever has been. And, you know, I think that hopefully people are going to start to understand that the virtual part of it, there is a lot of benefits to that.
Yeah, I think the needle will shift. I say, I don't think it's binary. That's when I asked the question, I thought there isn't an actual answer which is best. But it's a question of the needle will shift, I think, Tom, more and more in the favor of virtual, and we'll see less live and more very, very specific reasons for that live, and maybe even piggybacking on other reasons to get together. You know, sort of these team meetings where they say, and we're going to have a day of doing X as well as having the annual meeting, that sort of thing, sort of leveraging the cost. But yeah, I think the world's changed for sure.
Yes, it has. Well, we're going to wrap this up for this episode, and we hope that you enjoy this open mic type of format. And like you said, if you like listening, you can do that. But if you like watching it as well, we now have it on YouTube as video. So thank you so much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.